Hi, friends and family. I want to share with you today a word that God gave me. This morning in my quiet time, I clearly heard the word remember. And boy, do we need reminders. I set reminders on my phone all the time. I write reminders down on notes because those are the important things that I need to either remember that happened or I need to remember to do, or special dates that I always want to remember and never forget. These last 5 months, as many of you, as my friends and family know, have been insanely difficult. And not just because of COVID. We are all going through crazy times because of COVID, because of everything that's going on in our country and our world. I get it. We're struggling, whether it's the similar struggles or whether it's different. We're all taking turns on that struggle train, if you want to call it that. So ours hasn't been so much COVID, but it's been more medical issues in our family and with our children, and definite, real spiritual battles that we have seen miracles happen. Miracles. But those are stories for future videos, not right now, because right now I want to talk about memories and remembering important things that God does in our lives. So during these 5 months, as I've been sharing my stories and my family situation with other people, they go, wow, are you journaling this? Like, this is amazing. You have to be journaling this so you can look back and remember. And yes, I have been journaling it. I'll mark on the top of my journal, what God did and highlight it and the miracle that happened. And I'm so excited to look back in years and be reminded of that. Now, this might sound weird, but another way that I remember things that God has done is with rocks. Rocks, like real hard rocks. I love rocks. I have them all over my house and my property. I have them on my windowsills in my kitchen and on my kitchen table and on our hutch in our dining room and in our living room and in our bedroom, in my workspace. I love rocks. I'm a very naturey person. It's one of the ways I connect with the Lord. And I'm not particular on the type of rock I like. There's multicolored rocks, beautiful white rocks, square rocks. I especially love the ones that look perfectly round, and heart rocks. If you look close enough, you should find those in nature, and what a great reminder of God's love for me to always have on my windowsill. Kind of weird, huh? That I use rocks to remember things. Well, the fact that a rock can be used for remembrance brings me to a story of a man named Habakkuk. In the Bible, he has his own book. It's a short book of only 3 chapters, but he was a prophet. And his times were totally crazy, just like ours. They were filled with laws being neglected, with injustice, with corrupt leadership, and lots and lots of violence. So in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 1, verses 2 through 5, these first verses I'm reading are what Habakkuk was saying to God. He's just suffering and seeing his community suffering and crying out, God, why is this happening? How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Or cry out to you violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Therefore, the law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous so that justice is perverted. And then God replies with, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. So Habakkuk, as a human often does, went back and forth with God, this conversation of, yeah, but why? And I don't get it. And why aren't you doing anything? But at one point, God says, Habakkuk, remember the victories that I've had in the past. And this one will be even greater. Habakkuk does. He got that little kick in the butt, and he does remember. And he is filled with a new peace and a hope and a joy for what will come as a victory in the future over all of the violence and the injustice and the unrest and the corrupt leadership. He saw it. How many of you have cried out with that question of, why, God? Why is this happening? Why did I lose my job? Why did my child die? Why is my marriage failing? We've all had those questions, and God's okay with them. God's okay with us asking why. But if we linger too long on that question, we start doubting God's goodness and we step away from him, that's when things can get even harder. But God answers with well, it's because I have something better. We're never going to understand why God does things, or if he allows bad things to happen, or if he makes bad things happen. There's all different theological thoughts on that. What I know is that God is good, and that God does carry me through these hard times, and that I'm stronger when I come out of them. In this story, Habakkuk calls God his rock. Now, in the original Hebrew, rock has two different meanings. It could mean a literal, actual rock, a hard rock or a cliff, but it can also be figurative for strength, stability, and safety. And in the time when Habakkuk was using the word rock for God, he was saying that God was his safe, stable place. Now, rocks are used very often in the Bible, the figurative and the literal. So God and Jesus are often called rock for the reason that I just explained. But people used rocks to build their buildings. They had a cornerstone specifically, which actually Jesus is referred to the cornerstone. And that was that first stone that was laid down in the corner. And everything was built around it and above it. And if that cornerstone is taken out, the whole building could crumble. Stones and rocks were also used in the Bible for sentences, penalties for different sins. But one amazingly beautiful way that stones were used in the Bible were for memorials. There's several examples in the Bible about stones being used as memorials, but one of them I'll cover real quick is Joshua. Crossing the Jordan River, when he had all of those people cross the Jordan River that were going to be going into the promised land, God stopped him and said, choose 12 stones from the base of that river, from the riverbed, carry them to the edge, and build a memorial so that future generations and generations and generations will have something to look back upon and go, why are those there? And the earlier generations that know the answer can say, that's where God was good. That is a reminder of God's goodness and his faithfulness and his promises. So, I like rocks. Kind of a weird thing to talk about, but I surely do. And this one right here that I showed you earlier that sits on my windowsill, it has a Bible verse on it. Deuteronomy 31:6. It says, do not be afraid. Be strong and courageous, for God is with you. Beautiful. And that strength and that courage does not come from me, by the way. That comes from God. Because in these moments where I look at this and remember his goodness, I am broken. I am so weak. He is the one that gets me through these. So what my family's been going through, he is our rock. When I look at this, I get a renewed source of patience and renewed hope that even in the midst of this storm that God just carried us through, that we will come out stronger and that it will be another victory to be marked in our lives as what God has done. So I want to challenge you, please, and I encourage you to go find a rock. And on this rock, write something, write a verse, write a time where God has been victorious and lifted you up out of the pit. One more beautiful thing about having these rocks around is that people look at them and go, why do you have so many rocks? Or what is this rock for? Or why do you have a Bible verse written on this rock? And it's such a cool gateway into sharing my story and sharing my family's story with those that come over and share our lives with us. So please go and find a rock. It might sound silly, but it's totally not. It's what they were told to do in the Bible. And man, does it help. I love you guys, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.